Hey everyone, Justin here. I want to talk a little bit about Ironman Chattanooga specifically. So bike course, run course, and swim course tips, as well as some experiences I had in the city and some recommendations. So if Ironman Chattanooga is either your first Ironman or your first time doing the Chattanooga race specifically, this is going to be some videos sharing my experience to hopefully help you out. It's not really going to be triathlon specific tips. Ton of other videos on the channel if you want to check those out, but just Ironman Chattanooga specific stuff. So I did the race in 2018, which we'll get to a little bit because each year in Chattanooga has been very, very different. Lots of different experiences that people have had. Just talk a little bit about the city. It's a small downtown area. The Ironman Village is right downtown on the water next to the aquarium. It's a really cool place. If you have family, there's going to be a lot of good stuff to do. The city seems to really embrace Ironman, especially the downtown area. It was a really enjoyable experience. I liked it a lot. Where to stay? If you can afford the downtown area right near the transition area, it's probably worth it. I chose to stay about 10 or 15 minutes away to cut down on costs, as well as I didn't think 15 minutes was a huge deal, and it wasn't, which we'll get to in a sec. But if you've got the money to spend to be downtown, it's really nice. I had a friend, shout out, you know who you are, who gave me great access to his hotel room. It was really convenient for my wife during the day as well. And it was really convenient to be able to be in that downtown area, get all your stuff, do a short training run, hop over to the Ironman Village, to the river, whatever you wanted to do. Being downtown is really convenient. If you want to stay about 10 or 15 minutes away, it cuts down on cost quite a lot. The traffic is totally fine during the mornings, and it's surprisingly bad at rush hour, so just be aware of that. That said, if you don't mind, 10-15 minute drive each way, not a big deal. The only thing I will say to consider on race day in particular, if you have friends and family who are there to watch you, it can be a little bit of a pain to get in and out of the downtown area, so it might be worth maybe even doing like a hotel for the day for them. There is a good parking garage right downtown, which can help you out though, so it's not too bad. The actual Ironman Village is on grass, so it was really, really rainy, which I'll get to in a sec. On race day. So I would definitely bring another pair of shoes so you don't have to walk around the Ironman Village in a really muddy area. So the actual swim course for Chattanooga is a river swim. It's a point-to-point swim, obviously 2.4 miles in the Tennessee River. It's a really, really fast swim. So if you are even remotely in Ironman shape, you will be able to do the Chattanooga swim. It's one of the very fastest swims on the Ironman circuit. There have been stories that I think are true actually of people like throwing wetsuits in the water or rubber ducks or whatever, and they'll float down and make the cutoff just from the current. So there's a dam above the river where you swim, and depending on the amount of water that it's releasing that day, that determines how fast the river's flowing. So some years are going to be faster than others, but even in its slowest form, it's still a river and it's moving. So you will not be swimming 2.4 miles in water. You'll swim 2.4 miles of distance, but you're not actually going to swim the 2.4 miles of swimming. Unfortunately for me, there was a ton of rain a couple days before and leading up to the race, so my swim was actually canceled, unfortunately. There was so much water that the dam authority had to be releasing water constantly. It was considered unsafe. There was E. coli in the water, lots of flooding. In terms of like the Tennessee River, it's a really wide river. There's not like rapids or anything like that. You're going to go under two dams, and then you're going to exit onto essentially a little pier with a lot of like concrete steps. It's a great place for friends and family. So if you have spectators, there's a lot of room for them to come out and actually see you get out of the swim right there. Getting onto the bike course. This is an interesting course. It's not hard in the traditional sense. There's about 5,000 feet of gain over the 116 miles. It's a little bit longer due to a church and some traffic routing issues. I would kind of dub it sneaky hard in the sense that there's not some brutally savage climbs that are going to be absolutely destroying you, but what you actually get is a lot of rollers that are going to slowly sap your energy. So the bike course layout is essentially a popsicle, kind of what I call it. So it's a stick, which is about 12 miles long, 2 loops, and then back up the stick. So the loops are about 50 miles or 45 miles each. The stick's about 10, roughly. That'll give you an idea of things. So when you head on your bike and you're heading out of town, you're heading south on that stick. That's probably the worst roads on the entire course. So heading south out of town, you're gonna see a ton of bottles on the side of the road, ton of nutrition. So really good time to make sure that all of your bottles are super secure, that your bento boxes or storage boxes and everything like that are secure so that you're not gonna be ejecting bottles. There's a couple of train tracks, there's a couple of pieces of just really bad concrete. So once you get through the first about 12 miles, that's the really bad section of concrete, and now you're on the loops. And like I said, it's a lot of rollers. So when you're heading south out of town, it's a net elevation gain all the way to the turnaround at the very southernmost tip. And then when you're heading north, it's a net elevation loss. So your southern route is always going to be a lot slower than your northern route. So the biggest thing that I would recommend for the entire bike course, but especially on loop 1 while you're heading south, is those rollers are going to slowly sap your energy. So you're going to be feeling really fit, you're going to be feeling fresh, you're tapered, you're going to have a lot of adrenaline because you're warmed up, 12-15 miles in. And because it's a net elevation gain, what's going to happen is you're going to do a lot of little rollers up, but then there's not really going to be any descent on the other side. So that's kind of frustrating. You're going to see a lot of people who are going to be powering up these hills, and then they're going to get to the other side and it's just going to be flat. There's not any descent. So if you have a power meter, a heart rate monitor, those are great tools to use on this segment of the course. And I also recommend setting your bike computer to show grade as well, so that you're aware of when you're on any sort of a false flat. Eventually, you're going to come to one of two actually long climbs, and this is at the very southernmost tip. It's not an extremely hard climb. It's just something that you're going to need to sit up, spin in your lower gear and get up. It's probably something like a mile long or so. Right at the top of that hill, it's going to crest and it's going to go down a little bit. Word of caution here, you're going to have a short descent, and then you're going to have something like a 150-degree turnaround in a 2-lane road. So don't try to get up a lot of speed here, because you're going to be immediately slamming on the brakes and doing almost a 180-degree turn, so stay safe there. So now once you've turned around and you're heading north, this is where you're going to go a lot faster. So this is a net elevation loss all the way heading north on the loop, essentially. So much faster course. There's still rollers, but it's almost more like a flat section and then a descent, and then a flat section and then a descent. So it's not a constant descent, but it's a lot faster. The roads are pretty good. There was a couple segments of rough concrete, but they were generally pretty well marked. Nothing snuck up on me, nothing surprised me. I never had any like panic moments or anything like that. Mile 56 in Chickamauga is where you're gonna hit special needs. They're sorted by your number, so be aware of your number, look for your number. I knew what my number was, but I gotta say, special needs was kind of shorter than I expected, and I nearly flew by my number, so be aware of where you're at. So Chickamauga is another area where they bus spectators to, so you're gonna see a ton of people with signs. There's gonna be a lot of cheering, super fun. That said, right after you leave Chickamauga is another really long climb, something like a mile or so. So if you have all of this energy because you just got your special needs and you were super hyped up from all the friends and family, it's really easy to like cook yourself too hard up this climb. So the biggest thing, like I said, is just really stay focused and not overcook yourself on the bike course. It's not particularly hard on a technical level, but I think it's mentally hard, especially that very first loop. There's a lot of times where I was getting passed by quite a few people because I was really trying to stay conservative. But on the second loop heading south over those rollers, that's when I was doing the passing. All right, so on to the run course. I had to pull my phone out so I can get the maps right correctly for you guys. So this is a 2-loop run course on basically roads, river walk, and generally pretty good pavement conditions. You're not really gonna have any issues like that. Course starts out on Riverfront Parkway. The first 4 miles of the course out of transition, so miles 1 through 4 and miles like 13.2 through like mile 17-ish. These are probably my least favorite parts of the entire course. So you're running on the side of what's basically a 4-lane highway. There's a couple large overpasses that have just some frustrating gain to them. It's really exposed. So if you're in a really hot race like in 2016 and 17, I believe, bad part of the course, it's going to be hot, it's going to be sunny, there's not really going to be any place to escape. So getting off of that, once you hit about mile 4.5, you're going to do a turnaround onto the Tennessee Riverwalk. That's going to take you from about mile 4.5 to about mile 8.5. It has its times where it's exposed, but it's a lot more park setting, if you will. That's kind of a nice recovery from running on the side of the road, if you will. Miles 1 through 8 are generally pretty flat. Said once you cross the river at mile 8.5 on Veterans Bridge, now you're going to hit Barton Avenue at about mile 8.5 or so. And this is the hilly part of the course. It's a lot more residential. There's a lot of people over there, but this is the hardest part of the course. So the run course total has about 500 feet of elevation gain officially. Essentially, once you cross to the other side of the river on Veterans Bridge, you have a really steep descent, a really steep ascent. You do a loop, really steep descent, really steep ascent, and that's gonna hurt. So even a lot of really, really fit people, like I'd probably just walk them, because come loop 2, you're gonna be cooked. So I wouldn't overexert yourself on loop 1 if you're borderline. The cool part about that area though is because it's super residential, there's a ton of parties going on, especially on loop 2. Once it gets closer to nighttime, you're gonna be having people giving you beer or hard alcohol, people running along with you, wanting to sing, dance, take your picture. It's a really fun part of the course. So it's the harder part of the course, but it's the fun part of the course. Once you do that part of the course, you're gonna cross back over the Tennessee River on the Walnut Street Bridge. This is the wooden decked bridge that you're gonna see in all of the photos of Chattanooga. It's really fun. You don't actually see the finish line at the end of loop 1, so you know you're close to the finish line. But you can't actually see it, which I personally really like, because I don't know, it just mentally makes it easier. Like, you know you're close to the finish line, but you still have another 13 miles to run. A couple little other things on the run course. Around mile 11 on the northern side of the river after the Barton Hills, there's a little bit of a loop segment. That's not well lit. So if you plan on running at night, which on loop 2, I was hitting there just after sunset, it gets really, really dark. I actually hit a cone at one point. I didn't fall, but I did trip on it. Probably put a headlamp in your run special needs, so you've got that. Ironman will eventually hand out, like little fluorescent things during the night, but that's really so that you can see other runners. They don't really help illuminate the road or anything like that. When you're running at night, Ironman is gonna bring out chicken broth, fantastic. If you're at a dark point nutritionally or emotionally and there's chicken broth there, take the chicken broth. At the end of loop 2, when it comes time to the finish, you're gonna run through a kind of a quiet area, and then you're gonna hear the finish line. You can hear the music before you can see it. That's the time to really focus yourself and get ready to enjoy the finish line. I would personally probably not sprint to the line, especially if it's your first Ironman. The finish line is a really, really cool experience. You all know what the Ironman finish looks like from the perspective that you're used to seeing it, but once you've been running in the dark and you're nutritionally out of it and your eyes are adjusted for the darkness, when you run through kind of that light tunnel at the end, it is just overwhelmingly bright, and it's a really surreal, really cool experience. That 30 seconds is the best part of the entire day. That said, the other perspective is if you've got it in you for a nice final kick to the end and you want to finish strong, you do you. I will absolutely never say that you shouldn't do that. So I hope that was useful. If you have any questions about Chattanooga specifically, feel free to leave it in the comments. If you have any questions about triathlon training in general, there's a lot of other good videos on the channel. Hope you check out. There's a lot more coming. Hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. Since you're watching this far, you're probably doing Chattanooga, so I hope you enjoy it. It's a kick-ass race. You're gonna love it. Have a good day, everybody. Bye.